All right, back again, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon from wherever you are. Now, big debate that's been going on in the boxing world a lot. We hear, this PBC versus Top Rank, this PBC, this Al Heyman versus Bob Arum thing that's been going on for a while, and it's still going on to some degree. And, a lot of people that are on the PBC side, they are, supporting the PBC fighters and they're kind of hating the top rank fighters or hating on the top rank fighters. And then vice versa. The top rank fighters fans are hating on the PBC guys, fighters. So, this is nothing new. Boxing's always been tribal, always had these factions, whether it be for whatever reason. But I'm going to be objective here. I like both guys a lot. I actually think Errol Spence would win if they did fight, but it would not be an easy fight. I think it's a tough fight for both guys. I just think Errol Spence, until I see somebody, you know, break him down or hurt him or be able to stand up to his, physical strength and power and just his aggressive style, his grinder type style. I'm going to ride with Errol Spence. I think he is the man to beat in the welterweight division. But with that being said, one question that's asked a lot and it's brought up a lot is why did Terence Crawford re-sign with Top Rank instead of going over to the PBC where all the top welterweights are? Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, all these guys, Manny Pacquiao, all the welterweights seem to be with PBC, all the big names, all the champions, except for Terence Crawford. So why did he sign or re-sign, I should say, with Top Rank and not sign with PBC? Well, I mean, again, we hate to talk about this all the time. We hate to say it's a business, but at the end of the day, it's a business. We have to put ourselves in these fighters' shoes. To ask yourself, if you were offered to do the same job you're doing now for double or triple the money, and the job is the exact same or even easier than the job you're doing now, what are you going to do? You're going to go with the money. And if an employer says to you, you're in a, we're going to hire you, you're in a union, unless you break one of the union rules, we can't fire you unless your job is eliminated. You're guaranteed a job here as long as this job, as long as we have a company and as long as this job is still in existence, as opposed to just being a temp worker where you can get fired at any time or once the job is over, or once the project or the job or whatever it is over, then your job is gone. Would you rather have the security or not have the security? So you can be biased all you want. I'm biased too. We're all biased. But at some point, objectivity has to trump that bias. It has to kick in, and we have to use common sense in some of these situations, some of these debates. I'm not telling you not to like Errol Spence more than Terence Crawford, and I'm not telling you not to like Terence Crawford more than Errol Spence. If Errol Spence is your guy, you want to ride with him, got to ride with him. That's cool. That's cool. That's all well and good. But at the end of the day, let's really break this down. Now, Terence Crawford, and I'm going to put links to everything I'm saying here. I'm going to put links in the description box because I don't want to be accused of making shit up, and I don't want to be accused of, putting out fake news. I mean, if I've made mistakes before, I've said things that I thought were true that weren't true. I misspoke on occasions, and I have no problem immediately retracting and correcting those statements and admitting I made a mistake and admitted I was wrong. But in this instance, I think I'm pretty spot on with everything I'm about to say right here because I have a lot of links and I have corroborating links that kind of confirm what I'm about to say. More than one link. So I'm going to read an article on Ring TV by Mike Coppinger. And there's other articles out there too that are pretty much very similar to this. So Bob Arum ensured the welterweight title holder, Terence Crawford, will be in the top rank stable for the foreseeable future with a new multi-year agreement that was announced on Thursday. And this was basically, article came out on September 6th. So Crawford re-upped his contract with Top Rank in September of 2018. So financial terms were not disclosed, but Crawford's minimum purse for each fight exceeds $3 million, a source familiar with the deal told The Ring. So he's guaranteed $3 million a fight, regardless of who he fights. Then you may say, well, that's just a source. Okay, but I'm going to put another source in the description box that had the actual purses for Crawford's last fight and Errol Spence's last fight. Crawford made $3.62 million for the Jose Benavidez fight, whereas Errol Spence made $1.2 million for his Carlos Ocampo fight. Those were the numbers that were released. Whether they're true or not, they were officially released. So, I mean, it is what it is. We can debate this all we want, but we do know that purses are released to the commission in the United States, unlike the UK. We don't know if other checks are being written under the table. We all saw the situation when Julio Cesar Chavez was getting, an additional check on top of what was reported to the commission in one of his fights before. That's been documented. So I don't know if Errol Spence is getting back end money. I don't know. I don't know if he's getting checks on the side. I don't know. We can't confirm that. But what we can confirm is the purses that were actually released to the commissions. Okay, so $3.62 million, and Errol Spence got $1.2 million. Okay. Now, this isn't to throw shade on Errol Spence. I want Errol Spence to make $10 million a fight. I want Terence Crawford to make $10 million. I want all fighters to make as much as possible. I'm pro fighter. I don't root against any fighter to fail. Even Adrian Broner, I'm not a huge fan of him, but he's got a family. He's got a lot of kids. I don't want to see his kids go hungry. I don't want to see his family not be taken care of. I don't wish that upon anybody. I really don't. Whether I like you or I don't like you, I don't have anything against your family. I don't want your family to suffer. And I totally respect fighters, man. I know one punch can change everything. That's why I'll never call a fighter a coward, a bum. I'll never, ever question a fighter's heart, ever. I don't care under any circumstances. I'll never question a fighter's heart. I may not like what a fighter says. I may not like what a fighter does. I may not co-sign what a fighter says or co-sign what a fighter does. And on occasion I'll say that. But you'll never hear me call anyone a bitch, coward, bum, tomato can, none of that shit. You know what I'm saying? I've been in the ring before. I mean, obviously I was never a professional. I was never even an open class amateur. I was a novice amateur. And I've been in the ring and I took shots on a very, 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 very lower level. And believe me, it's nothing. It's not fun getting punched in the face, breaking a rib, having your nose broke. It's not. So think of I picture myself at that very, very low level of the very minimal boxing that I've done in my lifetime on such a small scale. I magnified that by 10. I mean, that's immense punishment that a fighter puts himself under, not only in the fight itself, but the training hours, the repetitive motion of just, throwing punches, fucking up your shoulders, getting torn labrums, torn tricep tendons, arthritis in your elbows, wrists. Think about throwing 1,000 punches a day in training over and over again. The body's not meant to do that, guys. So I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but let's get back on track here. So Terence Crawford has a multi-fight deal with a over $3 million minimum guarantee. that was reported, but not technically the numbers weren't confirmed. But we do know, according to the purses that were released to the commission, that Crawford did get $3.62 million for his last fight. So we can assume that the $3 million minimum is valid. I mean, with all due respect to Jose Benavidez, he's not an Errol Spence. He's not a Keith Thurman. He's not a Sean Porter. And if you're getting $3.62 million to fight a Jose Benavidez, and again, I say that with all due respect, because I don't put him in the same level as those other guys I just mentioned. So if you're getting $3.62 million to fight Jose Benavidez, then that says something right there. Now, we all know the PBC guys, they're not locked in. They don't have multi-fight deals, okay? Al Heyman advises them, okay? He advises them. He's not technically a promoter. He advises them, and he likes to kind of leave them freed up so he can put them on Showtime. He can put them on Fox. And, Alida Alvarez, we've seen him on HBO before. We've seen him most recently on ESPN. And, just to kind of debunk a lot of what Aram says, how, Al Heyman doesn't want his guys to fight other guys, from other promotional companies. That's bullshit, because we've seen Danny Jacobs as an Al Heyman fighter, and he signed a multi-fight deal with Eddie Hearn, and he's on, he fights. He's going to be fighting on DAZN, and he's fought on HBO before, and he's an Al Heyman fighter. So Al Heyman is an advisor. Okay, he's an advisor. He's not a promoter. So he doesn't, he doesn't have a promotional company per se. He has an LLC, which is, Heyman Boxing, but technically his job is to get his fighters the best deal. So it's not like he won't allow his fighters to sign a multi-fight deal, because Alida Alvarez did sign, who was an Al Heyman fighter, did sign a multi-fight deal with Top Rank. So what's Bob Arum have to say about that? You have an Al Heyman fighter under contract right now. So and he actually helped and advised him, before he accepted that deal. So this whole thing about how Al Heyman's the devil, I'm not going to subscribe to that either. I mean, obviously, he's going to do what's best for his company, but first and foremost, I believe he's probably one of the only guys in the sport that will do what's best for the fighter, because that's what an advisor does. A promoter has a different mindset. A promoter is out. His main objective is to put out the best show possible. Fuck the fighters. Al Heyman is looking to take care of these guys. He's looking to get these guys the best deal possible. So right now, he doesn't have, the majority of his fighters are not tied up to multi-fight deals. A lot of these PBC guys are not tied up to multi-fight deals. But again, Alida Alvarez, Danny Jacobs, they have had multi-fight deals. Danny Jacobs did have a multi-fight deal with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. He is going to be fighting on DAZN, and he is, to my knowledge, still advised by Al Heyman, and he was advised by Al Heyman when he fought Gennady Golovkin on HBO. So this whole bullshit of Al Heyman's not willing to work with other people. No, I think if it's best for the fighter, and the time is right, Errol Spence would fight Terence Crawford on ESPN. Now, the whole situation with Top Rank is different, because Top Rank signed an exclusivity deal with ESPN. So Bob can't go anywhere else. But Heyman fighters and Al Heyman, he's only contracted to have a certain amount of fights with Fox and a certain amount of fights a year with Showtime. Who those fighters are, doesn't matter. But Bob Arum's deal is he can only use ESPN. That he has no other choice but to use ESPN. So for him to sit there and say, Al Heyman doesn't want to do this, Al Heyman doesn't want to do that, I just don't. I just think the history totally contradicts that. But let's get back to this. I know we're kind of all over the place here, but we're going to tie it all together. We're going to tie it all together. Don't worry. So, Terence Crawford's got that multi-fight deal. Okay, he's getting over $3 million a fight. He just got $3.6 million to fight Jose Benavidez, who no one thought would win. and he didn't win. So you have to ask yourself, if you're Terence Crawford, who has a family, who has kids, and who is trying to set himself up for life after boxing, why would he not take that deal? If PBC is not going to match that deal or exceed that deal, then it would make no sense for him to go to PBC from a financial and a business standpoint. So why are we going to hate on Terence Crawford? Now, you could sit there and say, oh, this sucks. I don't like the fighters he's fighting. You have every right to say that if you want. You have every right to say that if you want. It sucks because Bob Arum has this vendetta against Al Haymon, and he's making it difficult to get these fights made. You could say that if you want, but at the end of the day, why are we going to hate on Terence Crawford for doing what's best for himself and his family? Why are we going to hate on him for doing that? Why are we going to root against another fighter? And why are we going to want another fighter to fail, hoping and praying for his downfall? You could like Errol Spence. He can be your favorite fighter. But does that mean you have to hate Terence Crawford? I just don't understand it. So if I'm Terence Crawford and I'm in the same situation, I'm taking that ESPN deal too. As a fan, do I like it? Not particularly, because again, potentially I could be missing out on a lot of fights. But I gotta respect and understand the decision. I gotta respect and understand the decision. I really do, man. I can't not respect that decision. I have to just use common sense and understand why he did what he did. Now, does this mean that Terence Crawford and Errol Spence can never happen? That, to be honest with you, in my opinion, that's up to Bob Arum. That's up to Bob Arum, because I've given examples where Al Haymon has had his fighters fight on other networks besides Showtime and besides Fox. I've given examples. Chris Arreola, Al Haymon fighter, fought on HBO, fought on ESPN. So, I mean, Bob Arum is just very salty right now because all of the welterweights are on the PBC side. Okay? And I've made videos before in the past where, the hypocrisy of Bob Arum, because when he had all the welterweights back in 2009, when he had Miguel Cotto, Joshua Clottey, Antonio Margarito, Manny Pacquiao, when he had all the fighters, all he cared about was doing in-house fights. He never cried about not working with Al Haymon, because at that time he didn't need Al Haymon, but now he needs Al Haymon, so now he's pissed. And Al Haymon's not going to bow down to Bob Arum. I really don't think it's personal from Al Haymon's side. I really don't. I think Bob Arum is the salty one here, man. So can this fight happen? Absolutely, it could happen. I don't think at all for 1 second that if ESPN approached Terence Crawford, if ESPN approached Errol Spence and said, hey, we'll give you a 4-fight deal for $50 million or $60 million, I don't think he would advise him not to take it. Errol Spence was on camera either today or tomorrow doing a video with ES News, Ali Setback, and they were talking about Canelo's deal, and he said, hey, give me a deal for $60 million for 5 fights, and I'll take it. So, I mean, if the right deal gets put in front of Errol Spence, you don't think he's going to take it too? Guys, there's a small window here for these fighters. Okay, there's a small window here for these fighters. Nothing is promised. Sometimes there's no tomorrow in this game. As we've said time and time again, one punch changes everything. Okay? So you can't hate on a guy for taking the money and the security of a multi-fight deal. Can't hate on Tyson Fury for doing what he did. Can't. And again, nobody's trying to scoop up Deontay Wilder. Like I know you don't think Deontay Wilder, if he was offered the same deal from ESPN, you don't think he would have taken it? You think Al Heyman would have advised him not to take it? Al Heyman didn't advise Alida Alvarez to not take the Top Rank deal. That's a Heyman fighter. He took the Top Rank deal. Danny Jacobs took the Matchroom deal. You know? So I think that this whole hate on Terence Crawford movement that's going on right now, I just don't agree with it, man. I don't agree with it. I mean, you could sit there and you can criticize the resume at welterweight. Okay, the guy just moved up, man. He just moved up. All right, we could sit there, we can nitpick any fighter's resume, man, if you really wanted to. Really wanted to. But if you sit there and you watch Terence Crawford fight and you sit there and you watch Errol Spence fight, you can't tell me these guys are not the top two guys in the division. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that. Do I think Errol Spence beats Terence Crawford? Yeah, I do. That's my opinion. But does that mean Terence Crawford's not a great fighter? Does that mean that Terence Crawford doesn't deserve to be in the conversation of one of the best fighters in the world? No. So Terence Crawford re-signed with Top Rank because he was given a lot of money to do so, and he was given the security of having a multi-fight deal. Okay? There's pluses and minuses to this. If you're a free agent, that means you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere. And that's not to say like Bob Arum has a deal with ESPN. He's supposed to, is he supposed, he probably, I don't know the terms of I don't know the situation of his deal with ESPN, but if it's anything like the agreement that Eddie Hearn has with the Zone, where it's a first and last rights refusal, maybe Arum does have the ability to shop Crawford around if a better deal arises. I don't know. I don't know that, and I'm not going to say that I do. But at the end of the day, if the biggest fight out there for Errol Spence is Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford, and Errol Spence has fought everyone else over in the PB side, and he's ready, to unify with Crawford, I think Al Heyman would not stand in the way to getting that fight done. I really don't, man. That's my opinion. I really don't. Let me open up this chat here, see if we have any comments here that I can respond to. Give me 1 second. All right, let's see what we got here in the chat. Crawford could make more on PBC. You don't have any figures, Jason Shaw, to substantiate those claims, because Crawford was never offered a multi-fight deal on PBC. Okay. Bro Max fat ass got bribed by Arum. They have a commentator job for the international fee. What does that have to do with Terence Crawford? Again, it's more fake news. All right. Crawford can make more. There's no security, Beeb. You get paid if you fight. It's not like the NBA. What do you mean there's no security? He's guaranteed fights. He's got a contract. Of course there's security. He can't be shelved if he's guaranteed fights. He's got a contract. Of course it's not like the NBA. No, that's a straw man argument. We're talking about boxing. You're talking about the NBA. When you start changing the subject, that means you can't give me an intelligent argument about the topic that we're on. If I'm talking about apples and then you want to say, hey, what about the oranges? You're disqualified. You lose. You just change the subject. Is Crawford number one at welterweight? Possibly. I think Spence is, but Crawford's definitely number two at the very least. One fight can change your career. Look at Gerald McClellan versus Najib. Andrew Ruiz fought on HBO and ESPN, now Showtime or Fox. Okay. Al Heyman is not sending A sides to either networks. You're talking about B side fighter. So you're telling me that Danny Jacobs, regardless of if he's an A side or a B side, you don't think he's not one of the best middleweights in the world? I disagree with that. Okay, Heyman fighters are on every network. This was Aram's choice to stall. I agree, given quality. All right, Crawford didn't even look across the street when he was a free agent. We don't know that. We don't know that. You could be right. I don't know. I don't know if you're right, but I don't know if you're wrong either. Okay, no fighter is a bum. I will never do that as well. Corey Lee, what's going on? What up? What up, Corey Lee? How you doing, brother? You can get heavy brain damage in sparring. Absolutely. I broke my nose in sparring, and I broke a rib in sparring. That's with 16-ounce gloves. Okay, Beebs, some boxers don't get through sparring. It's so brutal. Yeah. It's like saying Tom Brady makes less than Casey Kasem without factoring in the known incentives. Oh, what's that? Kasi Keenum, I'm sorry. Without factoring in the known incentives of Tom Brady's contract. It's being intellectually dishonest. We all know Spence makes more money. No, we really don't. We really don't know that Spence makes more money than Errol Spence. We don't. We don't. Unless you can provide proof, then we don't know. If we're going by what's released to the commissions, Terence Crawford paid 3 times more money than Errol Spence did in his last fight. And if you want to just say these things, you're going to have to provide evidence. And if you can't provide evidence, then we can only go with what's put in front of us. You know? Bucks and DDR. What up, Beebs? From what I've heard, Bob Arum has it where the last fight in your contract, they do everything in their power to get you to sign or we'll sit you. Again, we don't know that. Crawford was a young man from Omaha who doesn't have anyone in his life that knows much about finances or contracts. Bob Arum is historically known for underpaying African-American fighters. Again, this is all speculation. This is all speculation. Manny Pacquiao, who was a Bob Arum fighter, made well over $100 million when he fought Floyd Mayweather. And Terence Crawford is probably, right now, the highest paid welterweight in boxing. Name a fighter that makes more than Terence Crawford right now at welterweight. Provide me with a link. I just looked at Errol Spence's last fight, and I looked at Terence Crawford's last fight. Terence Crawford made 3.6. Errol Spence made 1.2. So you have to provide me. Like, I'm going to put links to everything in this description box. If you're going to make statements, I need links. I need sources to back all this up, or we can't have an intelligent debate. You could say your opinion, but don't try to pass it off as facts. If Crawford signed with the PBC, they wouldn't be matching him with the top guys anyways over there. And that's another good point too. PBC does have all the top welterweights. And yes, we did get Danny Garcia versus Sean Porter. We did get Sean Porter versus Keith Thurman. We did get Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia. Those were all good matchups. Can't hate on them. But why won't any of these guys ever fight Errol Spence, who's arguably the best, who's what most people think is he's the best welterweight that PBC has. Most people, if you asked anyone right now who would win, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, everyone would say Errol Spence, I would suspect. So you got the best welterweight in the world, and you got 2 of the other welterweight champions. So you have 3 of the welterweight champions over there, and they're still not fighting each other. So let's not spew that. Like, let's call this for what it is. You know, let's not be hypocrites here. They have all the welterweights over there, but none of them will fight Errol Spence, who's the number 1 welterweight, in my opinion, and at least number 2 in most. He's either 1 or 2 in most people's opinions, and those guys won't fight him. So let's not. I mean, this is let's take the bias out and let's be objective here. Let's look at what's in front of us. Let's not look at what we think, what we suspect, what we think. No, let's not pull out crystal balls and let's take the emotion out of it and let's just look at it. 3.6 million, 1.2 million. Both guys, 1 and 2, interchangeable. Okay? One or two interchangeable. Arguably, you'd have to say that Errol Spence, in terms of accomplishments at 147, fought the better guys. So based off of resume, possibly you could say that he's number one. You know, you could say he's number one at welterweight. Why is number two making three times more than number one? Why? Makes no sense. Okay? And that's not to say, hey, if Crawford does beat Spence, will I be shocked? No. Will it be an upset? Not really. I just look at it as a 60-40 fight right now in Spence's favor. That's my opinion. I'm sure a lot of other people think Crawford would beat Spence. So yeah, so kind of went through the chat here. Agree, Crawford is great B, but hasn't proven it yet. No elite up. No, Errol Spence has not fought an elite fighter yet either. Not. Kell Brook is not elite. Kell Brook is not a Mayweather. He's not a Pacquiao. He's not a Canelo Alvarez. He's not a Gennady Golovkin. And that's with all due respect to Kell Brook. Kell Brook is not an elite fighter. He's not. Is he better than anyone else that Crawford's fought at welterweight? Abso-fucking-lutely yes. I'll concede that point. I'll fucking concede that point. But he has not fought an elite fighter yet. And Terence Crawford, and please tell me if I'm wrong, anyone in this chat would beat anyone that Errol Spence has fought. Terence Crawford would beat Kell Brook. He would beat Kell Brook. I'm sorry. I think Golovkin ruined Kell Brook. I think he ruined him. And I think Kell Brook staying at 147 too long hurt himself too. He's not a 147-pounder. He's a 154 guy. He should have moved up a long time ago. Should have never fought Errol Spence. He was advised to not take the fight. He was advised to go up to 154. He fought Gennady Golovkin at 160. He was shredded to the bone at 160. At 160, shredded to the fucking bone. Walks around at 175. Has rumored to get up to 190 in between fights at certain points in his career. He likes to eat. He shouldn't be fighting at 147. Come on, tell the fucking truth. Be honest with yourselves. Was that a good victory? Yeah, he went into the guy's backyard, knocked him out. That's a fucking great victory. Is Kell Brook an excellent fighter? Absolutely. He's not elite. So stop throwing these fucking words around. They're not applicable. Kell Brook is not a Floyd Mayweather or a Manny Pacquiao or a Canelo Alvarez. He's not. He's not a Gennady Golovkin. He's not. He's not. Kell Brook beat Sean Porter, another very good fighter. But that's it. So I don't want to hear this shit. We're gonna sit there and we're gonna sit there and nitpick at these guys' resumes. Everybody has something still to fucking prove. Everybody still has fucking something to prove. Errol Spence has something to prove until he fights Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford has something to prove until he fights fucking Errol Spence. Fucking end of story. End of fucking story. And if Errol Spence does go out and beat Keith Thurman, does go out and beat Sean Porter, does go out and beat Danny Garcia, beats Mikey Garcia next, then yeah, he'll have the better resume than Terence Crawford. He will. But that still doesn't mean that he doesn't have to fight Terence Crawford. People are still going to want to see that fucking fight. If you're in this chat right now, if you're out there watching this video, and you tell me you don't want to see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford, then get the fuck out of my face, because you're not a real boxing fan. You're full of fucking shit. You're full of fucking shit. Tell me you don't want to see that fucking fight. Strip away all the bullshit, PBC, Top Rank, Bob Arum, Al Haymon. Tell me you don't want to see that fucking fight. Look me in the eyes right now and tell me you don't think Terence Crawford would be the toughest test for Errol Spence. Tell me. We just seen Keith Thurman almost lose to Josecito Lopez. Okay? We seen Sean Porter and Keith Thurman just have an extremely close fight. We see Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia have a close fight. Okay? There's been no clear-cut victory over each guy. Like each guy, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia. These were all very close fights. So if there's rematches in these fights, would we favor one guy over there? Yeah, but you can't sit there and tell me unequivocally that if Sean Porter and Keith Thurman rematched, that Porter couldn't win that fight. You can't tell me if Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman rematched, that Danny Garcia wouldn't win that fight. You can't tell me that if Sean Porter and Danny Garcia rematched, that Danny Garcia couldn't win that fight. But one thing I'm pretty confident of is none of those guys beat Errol Spence. I just don't see it. And I don't think any of those guys beat Terence Crawford. I just don't see it. So we know that those guys are very good fighters. But on any given day, they could beat each other. But one thing that I'm pretty confident of, and a lot of people I think would agree with me, is none of those guys could beat Errol Spence, and none of those guys could beat Terence Crawford. Let's fucking call it for what it is. Let's call it for what it is. This is my opinion, but I think it's a pretty valid opinion. So this is why I'm not going to hate on Terence Crawford for going to ESPN when all the welterweights are over at PBC. What good is it having all the welterweights over at PBC if there's no guarantee, number one, you're even going to fight them? Because none of those guys want to fight Errol Spence. So you go over there, you think they're going to want to fight you? You're seeing all these guys avoiding Errol Spence, right? You're seeing all these guys avoiding Errol Spence, right? So you think when you go over there, automatically they're going to fight you? They offered Danny Garcia $3 million. Turn it down. Turn down $3 million to fight Terence Crawford. $3 fucking million. You don't want that smoke. So, stop the fucking hating on Terence Crawford, man. Stop the fucking hating on Terence Crawford. Beeb was right. Benji, Beeb was right yesterday. Bud and Bob would love for the Spence fight to happen this year, but Spence has a plan that Al drew up that has nothing to do with Bud. It's 100% correct. Errol Spence said it out of his own fucking mouth. Terence, and I'm not saying that Errol Spence is ducking Terence Crawford. I'm not saying that. I know he doesn't want the fight this year. I know that because he wants to pick up the other belts. So then when he sits down with Terence Crawford, he can play the I got fucking 3 belts, you got 1 game. I don't have a fucking problem with that. I don't. I'm an impatient motherfucker just like the rest of y'all. I'm impatient too. But I got to look at it for what it is. Terence Crawford wants that fight. Bob Arum wants that fight because they got no opponents. There's nobody over there. And just because Terence Crawford's got a $3 million plus minimum guarantee over there, you don't think if he fights Errol Spence and they build that fight up and they put that on ESPN or Fox, who have such a large fucking audience, you don't think if they get behind that fight and really promote and push that fight, you don't think they can build that into a decent pay-per-view where instead of making the $3 million, maybe he makes $10 million, maybe he makes $12 million, maybe he makes $15 million? And I say maybe. I'm not saying, oh, babe, how the fuck can you say he's going to make $10 million? I'm saying maybe. Who knows? Who fucking knows? If someone told you last year that fucking Tyson Fury was going to get a $100 million contract for fucking 5 fights, would you believe him? Would you fucking believe him? He's in a fucking turn of a dime. Fucking Tyson Fury went from making $3 million a fight to fucking $20 million a fight. In the turn of a fucking dime. That's how fast shit happens in this fucking sport. So enough. PBC top rank. L. Heyman sucks. Enough. Enough. Fucking idiots, man. Fucking 3-year-olds. Oh, my dad can beat your dad up. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. I'm 50 years old fucking this year, December. Think I'm gonna fucking act like a 3-year-old for for the rest of my life after fucking being 50? I'm not a fucking pussy. I don't hang on any man's nuts. I'm not going to strap a saddle on anyone's dick and ride it. No fucking way. No fucking way. Some of you all got fucking daddy issues out there. You live vicariously through these fucking fighters. I heard one guy say, oh, when you retired, I fucking actually cried. Hey, man, I'm not going to tell you not to fucking admire people. You do what you want. But no disrespect. If anyone fucking retires from boxing, I'm not going to fucking cry, man. I'm going to fucking applaud. Especially if you got your fucking faculties and your money on point. I'm not going to cry for you. I'm going to clap for you. Because you could fucking talk saying, hey, I'm retiring. You could fucking actually fucking say the words, I'm going to retire. Some people, when they retire, can't even fucking say the words. Can Gerald McClellan say the fucking words? Can he? Can Adonis Stevenson say the fucking words? No. What about Peter Cologne? Look at him. So when someone says, I'm walking away, and they got a fucking bank account that's healthy, and they're healthy, and they can talk, you think I'm going to cry? I heard someone fucking say, I cried when you retired. No. Beebe ain't crying when anyone retires. He's fucking clapping. Good job, man. Good job, Andre Ward. You got a fucking job at ESPN. You're not getting punched in the face anymore. You're watching other motherfuckers get punched in the face, and you're getting paid for that. Good for you, Andre Ward. Good for you, Andre Ward. I ain't crying when any fighter retires, man. I ain't crying when any fighter retires. And that's just facts, man. So you never hear Beeb say, hey, I cried when you retired. I may miss you. I may miss watching you fight. But hey, man, if you got money and you can take care of yourself and your family and you can live to talk about it, Beeb's giving you a clap. Beeb's high-fiving you. Beeb's saying, hey, good job, man. Thank you for all the fucking all that you've given me for entertainment throughout your career. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, I mean, some of you motherfuckers, man, you have to fucking find something else to fucking invigorate you every day, to push you every day. You can't fucking look at these guys and live through them. They're not you. When they lose, you don't lose. Okay? When they make $1 million, you don't get shit of that. Okay? You don't get none of that. Okay? You don't get none of that. So why the fuck you crying? Why are you crying? Why are you rooting for anyone? Oh, look what Terence Crawford did. Look at his number. Why would you root for another guy to fail like that? Why? How does that make you better as a person? How the fuck does that make you better as a person, hoping that Terence Crawford's fights don't get good ratings? You actually hear motherfuckers, look at Terence Crawford's fights. Look how much people watch them. And look how much people watch Errol Spencer's fight. Why would you concern yourself with that? I watch Terence Crawford's fights. I watch Errol Spencer's fights. I don't give a fuck if who watches them, who doesn't watch them. I'm going to watch them. I only care about what the fuck I'm going to do. I can only control what I'm going to do. I'm not going to root for these guys to fail. Why? What did they do to me? I don't even like Adrian Broner. Do you think I want to see him fail? I don't want to see him fail. I don't want to see anything bad happen to Adrian Broner. But if something does happen to him, that's bad. I mean, obviously, we do know that he put himself in that situation. He's created that environment for himself. But I'm not rooting against the guy. I'm not rooting against the guy. I'm not laughing at him. I'm not laughing at him. Everyone else is laughing at him. Oh, you know, he'd be saying crazy shit at these press conferences or during these interviews. I'm going to do this. Everyone's fucking laughing. You're not helping him. You're not helping him. And he doesn't realize that, yeah, look at all these motherfuckers laughing at me. I'm fucking cracking on this dude. I'm cracking. When he's laid up in a hospital bed or something, or he's locked up in a prison cell, none of these fucking motherfuckers care. They're not doing anything for him. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I don't want to hear anyone fucking tell me. I don't want to even fucking hear anyone tell me, okay, this guy's this, this guy's that, this guy doesn't do shit, this guy doesn't draw, this guy. I'm not, even Anthony Joshua, you know, people want to take shots at him. And yeah, I mean, I think Gerald Miller got in his ass yesterday. I think that, you know, he fucking torched him at that press conference verbally. I do. But am I going to sit here and say that I'm not going to watch that fight? Am I going to sit here and say that I hope that fight doesn't sell out? Am I going to sit there and say, hey, do I want that fight to fail? No, I don't want any fight to fail. I don't want to see any fighter fail. I don't want to see any promoter fail. I really don't. I don't see how it's beneficial to the sport. I just don't. I don't want the UFC model over in boxing. I don't want just one guy running shit. I don't want just one guy running shit, because look what happens when one guy runs shit. It doesn't make things better. Some of the matchups are better over there. Yeah, it is. They are better over there. But if you're not in the UFC, like Fedor Emelianenko, you know, for years we wanted to see him fight UFC guys. He wasn't able to do it. You know, are the best fighters in MMA all UFC fighters? Yeah. But the thing is this, there's more people fighting in boxing than there are MMA fighters, obviously, because the sport's a lot older. But the UFC model would not work in boxing. There's just too many fighters, and boxing is in too many countries. Okay? Now, MMA is in other countries too, but it's not in as many countries as boxing is. And it's not as big in other countries as boxing is. Boxing's huge in the UK. Boxing's huge in Mexico. Boxing's decent size in Canada. Boxing's decent size in Japan. Okay? There's a lot of Hispanic countries boxing is big in. So I don't want there to just be an Al Heyman and not be a Bob Arum. I think we need both of them. And, you know, am I going to stop anyone from taking one side over the other? No, you don't have to. But when it comes down to sitting there saying, oh, look at Terence Crawford's numbers. Oh, look, like rooting for Terence Crawford to fail. Because if you're rooting for Terence Crawford to fail and you want his numbers to suck, then how is that going to help when an Errol Spence fight comes to fruition, when that comes to materialize? You should want to build Terence Crawford up, so that when Errol Spence does fight him, if you're an Errol Spence fan, then that fight for Errol Spence will be that much bigger. That fight will be that much bigger. So I'm looking at the big picture, man. I don't want boxing to turn into the UFC. And that's not to say I don't like the UFC, because I've bought several UFC pay-per-views. But I like the boxing model. I like the boxing model better than the UFC model. I do. So that's my rant for today. You know, again, you know, I'm gonna call this guy out, Jason Shaw. You're a fucking retard. You're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot because you root against fighters. You're not a real boxing fan. You root against fighters. Here's a guy that always has to be on he always has to be on a side. It always has to be an us against them. People like that, you know why they have to be on a side? They have to belong to a group. You know why? Because they're weak. They're weak. They can't stand on their own 2 feet. They need to live vicariously through other people. Okay? And this is a guy that openly roots against Terence Crawford just for the simple fact that he's a top-ranked fighter, because he has to belong to a side. Because, again, people that have to belong to a side, people that put themselves in a box, people that put a label on themselves, people that subscribe to a group and can't be independent thinkers, they're weak people. They're people that don't have enough inner strength to formulate their own opinions. Because you could sit there and you could go on the internet and you could look for confirmation bias all you want. You could say, well, look what this guy did. But then again, I can go to the other side, and the other side did the same thing. We could sit there and look throughout boxing history, okay? And we can nitpick through anyone's resume. We can nitpick and say, well, this guy did this, but then we can go on the other side of the street and it'd be 10 other guys that did the same thing that guy did. So no one is above the evils of the sport. There's enough fucking bullshit to go around in this sport. Okay? Canelo's not the only guy that got gift decisions in his career. De La Hoya used to get gift decisions too. You know? De La Hoya used to get gift decisions too. And stuff, and a lot of his fights. You know? Julio Cesar Chavez got gift decisions too. So there's always been that guy that you know the media and the public got behind. So it's like there's always, so you could take one example of something that's going on right now, and a lot of these new fans think that this is like some of this stuff is new. But if you've been watching the sport long enough, it's just basically revisionist history. Okay, it's almost like time repeating itself, the story repeating itself, but just a different cast of characters. Okay, boxing hasn't really changed all that much when you think about it. Yeah, the social media has changed it. Yeah, the apps and the platforms have changed. Yeah, okay, the technology has changed, absolutely. But boxing at its core is still the same as it ever was. The A-side fighter always gets the preferential treatment. That's never going to change. We know that. Okay, there's always going to be certain promoters who are bigger than other promoters, and they're going to use their leverage. So anytime someone has leverage, of course they're going to use it. Lou DiBella, I interviewed him several times, and there's before he this PBC came about, before he was working with a lot of Al Heyman events, before he was promoter of Deontay Wilder, before he was in a favorable position like he is now, he would complain about Bob Arum. He would complain about Oscar De La Hoya. HBO used to give Oscar De La Hoya and Bob Arum all their dates, and he could never get dates. And he said, yeah, these guys have the leverage, and of course they use it. Because if I had the leverage, I'd use it too. So anyone that has leverage in this sport is going to use it. So we can't sit there and get mad, and we can't say, well, this guy's this guy's that, because everyone's the same when it comes to it. At the end of the day, everyone will do the same thing when we're put in a similar situation. Money is always going to be the biggest determining factor in this sport. It's always going to be about the money. It's never not going to be about the money. Even when people say it's not about the money, it always is about the money. And at the end of the day, when you look at the history of this sport and you look at the highest earners in this sport, the top paying guy in this sport has always had a contract with some type of network or platform. Always. Canelo Alvarez is the highest paid athlete in this sport right now. He's the highest paid athlete in the sport right now. He has a multi-fight deal. So the end game in this sport is to become a pay-per-view star, and it's to get a guaranteed contract with a significant amount for a minimum purse. That's always been the goal. Okay? That's always been the goal. So we can't hate Terence Crawford for wanting what everyone else wants. Because if the tables were turned and Errol Spence was put in that same position where he was getting a deal similar to what Terence Crawford's getting, I'm sure he would take it. I'm sure he would take it. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. All right, guys. Beaver's out. Talk to y'all soon. Peace. Have a great day. And Jason Shaw, you're a fucking fanboy. You root against fighters. You're not a real boxing fan. You're not a real boxing fan. You're a coward. You're a coward that hides on the internet, that talks shit about boxers, calls them names that you would never say to their face. You're a fucking coward. I'm calling you out. I'm calling you out, Jason Shaw. I'm calling you out. Beaver's out. Peace.